Kicking off this section with The Guardian, and Trump has said that Russia should attack NATO allies, suggesting he doesn't really understand the basic concept of NATO, which is that all members respond to an attack on one of them, sort of like the Musketeers bit with Apache helicopters, Paul.
Yeah, it's like Trump is constantly talking like he's in a WhatsApp group. I love it. So for context, and there is some context here, there are two things to consider. One is it's in The Guardian, so we know what perspective it's coming from. And I think that's a real key thing to consider. It's also against the backdrop of the US spending a further billions and billions on Israel, Gaza and the Ukraine. So they're in the Senate.
They haven't passed that bill.
They haven't passed that bill at the moment, but that's the backdrop of why this is going on, because unlike us, America are a long way away from Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they care.
Alaska's not.
Yeah, well, Alaska's not. That's a good point. However, that's not where the war's taking place. And the people in America deem that quite a few of the people in America deem they've got a lot of internal problems to worry about, let alone continually funding wars elsewhere to billions. So that is an important backdrop. The other thing, of course, is that he said one of the presidents of this, by the way, has taken place in apparently it's real. The Guardian questioned it. There was a meeting that took place at some point when Trump was president. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? To which he responded, you didn't pay, you delinquent. You're a delinquent. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You've got to pay your bills. Yeah. So the sentiment behind that, if you take it out of context, is perfectly OK. If you're in a kitty in a bar and you're on a stag do, everyone's got to put a tenner in, and you haven't put a tenner in, then you ain't going to get a drink. That's his point, right? So just taking it down to the gammon level. Now, if you bring that back up to world politics, it's a bit of a problem, because this is NATO, and as you rightly pointed out, NATO don't just, it's all for one and one for all. We go together. If NATO country gets attacked, then we all go. So it goes against that principle.
Yeah, Nicholas, doesn't this undermine the sort of threat, the implicit threat behind NATO, which is that, we will respond, all of us as one. If you step foot on one of the NATO countries, Trump is sort of like saying, well, actually, America won't, and America's the biggest dog in NATO.
But there has to be fairness as well. Now, speaking of context, this was in a political rally by Trump, and secondly, this was one of Trump's signature policies or talking points, that Americans have been taken for a ride, that America is paying for the defense of others, and we are not fools. And of course, he was proven right. The fact that NATO member states agreed the target of spending 2% of their GDP was established in 2014, before Trump even came into the White House, right? Yeah. And that was the year Russia took Crimea. Okay, and even after that, many of them, only a hand by 2022, only a handful, literally a handful, were paying that much. Yeah. Okay, and Trump was laughed at when he stood in the UN and told the Germans, we must invest for your defense, and you are getting your gas from the Russians. They will eat you up. And you could see the videos are still there. The German delegation were laughing, belly laughing at what he was saying, and he was vindicated. And look where we are now. And NATO panicking, defense budgets being beefed up, maybe not sufficiently, but still, NATO didn't have enough ammunition to send Ukraine. They had to ratchet up the production. So Trump was proven right. If he is speaking behind closed doors to one of these, leaders or the president he's talking about, it only makes sense that say, look, guys, because they ask him, if we don't pay, would you still defend us? What is he supposed to say? Yeah, we would still defend you even if you don't pay your fair share?
And it's disingenuous for anybody to believe that nobody else would answer in a similar way. Maybe not as flamboyantly as Trump has, but if you ask that of any American leader, by the way, we're not going to pay anything and you've got to pay for all our wars, they're not just going to sit there and go, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and also, I mean, didn't he say this on the campaign trail? So he's doing a 90-minute monologue. Yeah. So he's going to just spin a load of nonsense.
Oh, he's got it's like an Edinburgh show. He's got some packing in there.
It's for entertainment. It's not necessarily the actual
to be taken literally
policy that he's going to come out with. And also, before we move on, I'd just like to point out that Britain reaches and goes above that 2% threshold for NATO defence spending. So we're one of the 7 countries in NATO that does.